Today we actually came out to probe a Barley car. The Barley car is underneath the falling gear protection rail system. That's where we put on our falling gear harnesses, our hard hats, our safety glasses, and our bright vest. That way people know that we are up there and that we are doing it safe and properly in case of any situation. We never know what our weather conditions are going to be. Wind, rain, snow, sleet, summer, we're up here every day. So the first thing we do is when we come up to the rail car, we verify that it is the correct rail car by looking at their number. BNSF usually has a 6-digit number that we verify with it. We circle the car, make sure that there are no leaks, there's no issues with it. If there's any kind of a problem such as leaking fluid or leaking grain at all, then we automatically verify that. After that, we climb up the rail car depending on the situation. Today we had stairs. Sometimes we climb up the ladder on the side by the brake line, and then we open each door to verify that it is the correct grain or commodity in there. After that, we set up our probe, which is a 12-foot probe made of completely brass. The process with probing each of the hoppers is we have to make sure that we're in the center of each hopper. We also have to make sure that we're getting to the bottom if possible. And that way we have a good quality sample that we're getting and it's representative, and that we have enough of our probe slots full in order to get a representative sample. So after we've probed it, we make sure that we put it in a location with us on person, lock it in our vehicle, we get it back to our grain lab, and that's where we'll break it down for a grading process. And depending on what the ask on the 907, which is our form that tells us, will either be a thresher run or it's already a process lot. So that way we have the verification to get the grading done in the correct manner.
We gather our samples every morning and we will actually divide them through a Carter Day divider. What this actually does is divide the sample into representative portions. It has multiple chambers throughout it, so it actually divides the sample very evenly. Every cut that you do is half of what you had cut before. So after the samples actually broke down into its representative portion, we will administer a moisture. The moisture itself is actually calibrated into different commodities, and we constantly get updates from FGIS on a flash drive. So every moisture that you actually receive on your grade will be calibrated to the newest data that is through FGIS. So after the moisture, we will throw a sample through a dockage carter machine. This actually separates fine chaff, weed seeds, and smaller broken kernels from the sample itself. After that is actually complete, we will send the sample on through for a test weight. What the test weight actually does is give a farmer a representative idea of what he has per bushel for the sample itself. Our last station is the shrunken and broken sieve, where we will actually prepare the sample for its last bit before the inspector actually looks for damages and defects. After the inspector has done so, we will do the last portion of testing for this sample, which is actually the protein content. After that is done, we will actually bottle the sample up and we will give it to our administrative assistant to be entered in for data and certified. Falling numbers is actually a very important test for millers especially. It actually gauges what the content of their bread quality is going to be. The very first process of falling numbers is we actually have Perton grinder machines, and we will take a sample that is representative of about 250 grams of the sample that we actually graded for damage and defects, and we will grind it down to a fine powder. Now when that fine powder comes through to the wet lab, we actually weigh it up to 7 grams evenly. With that 7 grams, we will actually put it into a tall test tube. And with that test tube, we have actually added our water base. We'll run them in doubles in the tubes, and we'll put them into a shaker. The shaker will go back and forth for about 30 seconds, and when it's done, we only have a certain amount of time, I'd say probably about 15-20 seconds, that you take that tube out and you will scrape the residual off the cap. And we actually have stir sticks that you scrape the residuals off the side as well, all the way down to the base of where the water is. You will actually put it in the incubating unit. Now what will happen after that is set in there is there are sensor bays. And there's two little prongs that will come down and it picks those stir sticks up. And it goes up and down motion. And it'll do 60 repetitions. After those 60 repetitions, those forks will remove and we'll have tall stir sticks is what it looks like, and they're metal, and they will slowly start to drop. Now when those stoppers finally come to a certain point and stop, it will result in your numbers on those machines. And with us running two at the same time, we will actually take the average of both of those to get your actual falling number result. The lower number that you get for falling number, the lower quality of bread you're actually going to receive in the batch. The higher number that you actually get in a falling number is going to result in a higher quality of bread. For example, when you go to a store and you see a bunch of holes in bread, that means it was a lower falling number and lower quality grain was actually used to mill that. When you get your high quality bread, you're not going to have as much holes in it. You'll have wholesome bread itself, and it holds better together. That is the result of a higher falling number. So when a sample comes across an inspector's desk, there is multiple things that we are actually looking for. We'll actually start with the dockage pan. So at this point, what we're actually looking through, we're trying to see if there's any type of animal excretion in here, if we have any type of insects, weevils, lesser grain borers. If we have any whole kernels like this guy here, we're actually going to take him out of the dockage so that he's no longer counted as dockage, and we will apply him back to the sample. What we're actually looking for here also is any type of treated kernels, which would be coated almost with a fluorescent pink. We're also looking for fertilizer pellets, any type of stones, which we would actually pick out of this portion here. We can also look for ergot, which is a fungus that is also detrimental in large cases. Anything that is an unknown foreign substance, if it does not look natural and it does not belong there, then we make sure that we record that and that it does not actually keep going through the food supply. And then we'll go to the shrunken and broken. Now this was what that last station in the back actually did, was it takes all these smaller, they're still mature kernels, but they fell through the screenings itself, so this is actually going to count against the farmer. These are smaller kernels. After our shrunken and broken, we have our foreign material pan. This consists of about roughly 60 grams. So what we're going to do is actually go through and we'll remove anything that is not a whole kernel, anything that may be a chaff. Once again, if there's stones, any type of ergot. I'm going to go ahead and administer a DHV, which means dark, hard, and vitreous. This is very crucial to the farmer as he would like to know how much of a percentage of the total value of his spring wheat are actual dark kernels. Now the way that we actually administer this is we will go through, we actually have razor blades so we can dissect the kernel if there's any doubt in our mind. So if at any point there is a dispute from the farmer, industry, or the inspector themselves, we can actually approach our wheat library, which we actually have sectioned off. On the left we have all the varieties that are grown in Montana of winter wheat, and on the right we actually have all the varieties of spring wheat that are grown in Montana. Now if there's any type of dispute as well as foreign material and weed seed, we actually have a weed seed library as well, so we can come across and we can identify it for anybody as far as farmer, FGIS, industry. Now the importance of a mycotoxin testing is to actually see if there's any type of negative molds, anything that is not good for human consumption. It'll actually bring those out and let us know, and we are testing it through parts per million and parts per billion. Through this, we can actually see and be able to remove any type of like Fusarium mold, any other types of negative molds that may have detrimental causes to the human body when actually consumed. Another thing that is actually pretty important about the Montana State Grain Lab is everything that we actually certify, a buyer can actually take across seas. With that certification, it no longer limits the buyer and no longer limits the seller. We want to make sure that we're 100% accurate and that we make our customers and industry very happy with the results that we give.